Hello everybody, welcome to this episode of SiGMA TV. My name is Alex. Today, I'd like to introduce my guest. He graduated from Delhi University in 2003 with a bachelor's in physics and a master's in computer applications. Then for 12 years, he continued his adventure with NetEnt right up to the acquisition of Red Tiger. In 2019, he was promoted Director of Platform and then CTO in 2020. And now, since June 2021, he started as the CTO of Aspire Global. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Aditya Bhushan. Aditya, welcome
Thanks,
to
Alex.
the show.
Thanks for having me here. And yes, it's been a journey and a good one.
It's a real pleasure.
Thanks.
Let's start right off the bat. I'd like to know, what is it about a techie at heart that inspired you to join the management team of Aspire?
Yeah, well, it took almost 2 months for both of us to decide that this is what we wanted to do, both Aspire and myself. I had a lot of meetings with Saki, the CEO, the HR, a lot of people in the senior technical roles there. And basically what I loved about the company was their whole vision about trying to become the leader in the B2B platform space, becoming the platform of choice for all the markets, all the regulated markets, all the tier 1 operators, and also sort of providing a full offering under one umbrella. The acquisitions that have been done in the last couple of years have been very exciting. And now if you look at the offering that Aspire Global has, it has everything that an operator would need to start an operation from ground up. And the presence in all the regulated markets makes it just sweeter. So the whole vision of leading the platform space, and that quite matches with the work that I have done in the last 12 years at NetEnt with on the platform side and leading up the platform revolution and everything. I think it was a good fit from my side at least. And I think it's Saki.
That sounds very exciting, very happy for you. So talking about evolution and about having a very wide offering right up to sports betting and everything at Aspire, but I'd like to have your take on how the industry, the iGaming industry specifically, has evolved since 2009 when you started up to now.
Oh, it's so long ago. Nothing seems to be the same anymore. I mean, when I started in the industry, when I landed in Stockholm, it was an unknown world for me. And it was very different. I mean, we were still working with Flash as the only viable technology for making games. Symbian OS and BlackBerry were the rage at the moment, at that time. And, you know, everything was different. We were a team of architects sitting in a room, coming up with like hundreds of pages of documentation, quite detached from the actual development process. The org structures were very different. In terms of technology, there were these service-oriented architecture was like the buzzword, and companies were spending millions on ESB products, which no one understood, but everyone had to buy. So it was very different. And I remember that there was an incident when one of our architects in an all-hands meeting, he just stood up and said, okay, looks like Flash is not going to live around much longer and it's going to die. And there was a huge furore in the company. We had such a huge team of developers, and they were all like, oh, you guys have no understanding of what's happening. Flash can never die. It's such prevalent. So that was then. And similarly, I mean, we had another instance.
Yeah, I totally understand. Totally understand, because I mean, Flash has its limitations, and now we're coming down to things like Chromium, and the application platforms are evolving to be all browser-based, and it's leaps and bounds compared to what technologies we were using a few years ago.
I mean, there is no comparison. When we started our mobile lab, people were saying there is no chance players will be playing on a screen so small. And now it's like mobile first is the way to go. Cloud was unheard of, and now that is where everybody wants to be. So it's grown leaps and bounds just in terms of front-end technologies, the kind of graphics we can produce now in 3D. It's all amazing. I mean, it's so lovely to be in this space, seeing how the technology has grown and how iGaming industry has adapted to it. It's very fulfilling as a techie, actually.
Yeah, and it's really critical because now we know that 80% of the traffic comes actually from mobile devices. So, see, having a good vision makes the whole difference in a management team and where it leads a company in the future. Absolutely. So what's the upcoming technology trends in the industry, in your opinion?
Well, the good thing with iGaming is that we always stay at the forefront, and there are always companies that keep coming up with innovative products. So I'm seeing a lot of activity in, for example, the in AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning space. So personalized player lobbies, for example, are available off the shelf from some of the vendors now. So I think that will become mainstream in coming years. I mean, we have seen what Netflix has done with that, so we can't be far behind. And then the games based on augmented reality, virtual reality, I think they're coming back. We tried a few years ago, the industry did not pick up, but I'm looking at them and they're really coming back with force now. So that is something to watch out for. Then there are some interesting things happening on the distributed ledger blockchain technology. I think that will be very interesting space to continue looking at. The advent of 5G, for example, the kinds of speeds that it is promising, I think we will have to really buckle up. We can't hide behind network latencies and say, okay, the delays are because of that. So a lot of things are very exciting in coming years. Similarly, there is a space, I think, where we have not yet ventured, but soon should, is wearables. Just by looking at the volumes that people are buying these devices, I think that is one space that I'll be interesting to see what we can do in that area.
Fantastic. Wow. Indeed, very exciting. So beautiful challenge for you at Aspire as well. Now, this is now we discussed a little bit the technology aspects and the trends where we're going, but now there's another challenge that the industry is currently facing, and that is regulation. And in particular, for example, in the US or Latin America, or more recently over here in Germany, even though part of the European Union had decided to apply its own laws. And we see that every jurisdiction basically wants to start having its own policies and being able to give licenses as well. So what's your take on that?
You know, I'll tell you, when we first started going into a proper regulated market, I think that was Italy in 2010, 11, if I remember correctly. And that was a challenge. I vividly remember we had a project that spanned for like 3 months at the beginning, but it stretched on for 1.5 years because we were unsure, regulators were unsure. So that was a challenge. But from then to now, I think we have matured a lot. I think the industry has matured and we have realized that regulation is the way to go. So I don't really see these upcoming regulations in each US state and LATAM and remaining Europe states as challenges. I see them massive opportunities. And we have seen that wherever there is regulation, the overall market size increases and sort of players are more confident in coming out. So that's just great for the industry on a whole. And I'm not saying it's easy. I mean, there is a race between the regulators to make it really challenging for the entrants. So be it hosting requirements or reporting or taxation, as we have recently seen. So the challenges are a lot. But for companies like Aspire, for example, where we have made a concentrated effort into creating our tech and processes around entering all these regulations, it's just the way how we do work. So that we feel that we're strongly poised to take on all these regulations and come out as a winner.
Now in this we have two aspects. There's the legal aspect where you have a department taking care of risk, but then technology-wise, and I'm talking as a like CTO as well, technology-wise, there's a lot of implementation to be done to be able to respect all the requirements and all the exigent tasks from the like FIO, from the MGA and other regulated bodies. So how does Aspire work around that? And in particular also, how does it take into account cybersecurity and the security of their user data? Or what is your plan to take that, or how are you going to take that on as CTO of Aspire?
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. As I said, the challenges are a lot, and each regulation comes up with something different. So they're not the same. So every time the tech has to adapt. But what we have learned in the last 10 years of regulation is that we have to be very nimble on our feet. And the whole idea of designing a tech organization and the processes and the choice of technology has to be done in a way that you can adapt fast. So now the way we are designing systems, and it's not just sort of in the last few months, it started like a few years ago, that we are building systems so that we can really cater to all these requirements in a fast pace. So, and the companies which can't do that, I don't think they'll be able to survive much longer. So I want to continue to do that journey that we started a few years ago, where everything around technology is to enable entering of these new markets and to be able to answer to all these regulations in like the fastest way possible. And I think as technology leaders, that is my primary job. That is what I have to do, to build and tech an organization that can adapt to this. And coming to your aspect of security, I think that is really something that we have to keep in mind. And at Aspire, we have like a dedicated department and people who are just working on the infrastructural security. But what we have seen in the last 1 year, especially with the pandemic, is that it has thrown a lot of new challenges. People are working from anywhere, so it's not like you can just have a secure office environment and then you can feel safe in that. People are connected from across the globe, from unsecured networks at times, from cyber cafes and all. So you have to have a very robust security infrastructure. It's not enough to have a secure network. It's like what we call as the zero trust network, where each and every endpoint of your infrastructure has to be secured. And just on that, I think a couple of months ago or so, Joe Biden, US president, has announced that they will have a zero trust security network across all their departments. So that is something that is growing in each industry. And the number of attacks that we see on our industry, I think we are one of the most targeted industries in the world. So that is why we have to be on our feet always.
Look, I couldn't agree more with you. I did an episode of SiGMA Deep Tech recently where I discussed zero trust and why it was critical to implement it in most companies. We can't go anymore with Active Directories and having all the computers trust each other within a network. The second you catch a virus or a malware or a ransomware, it spreads considerably everywhere at such a high rate of speed now that zero trust is definitely the way to go. I really commend you for that.
I mean, and in the last 1 year in US, we saw the SolarWinds episode where there was like a Trojan horse injected in a network monitoring software. So then you can't prevent. If something enters your network and you have like the traditional VLANs, then it doesn't work. And what happened with SB Tech on security, on the ransomware front, the threat is real, and we have to be on our toes to just make sure that we are up to it.
Yeah, and really, in the case of SolarWinds, if that's what you're talking about, it's particularly nasty because the virus was sent actually as a patch, as an update of the software, and the companies thought it was a legitimate patch sent by SolarWinds itself. So really, it comes from all sides now. So indeed, I see it very well. Let's have a little change of subject here. I'm a particular fan of sports betting. And we know now that in many countries, let's say, for example, in the United States with the National Hockey League, the NHL, they want to implement sports betting and do partnerships with companies to be able to offer sports betting right down to like inside the venue, like the arena, or the NFL, National Football League. That's like huge when we know that the Super Bowl is one of the highest bet sports in
across the globe.
At any given time of the year, you know, it's the one that gathers the most interest. What exactly is Aspire Global doing in that sense? I saw that you have a full dedicated section on sports betting. So.
Yeah, I mean, see, sports is still sort of the biggest industry in this. And US, for example, is primarily a sports market, as we have seen in all the reports that come out. So, I mean, you can't be ignoring it. You can't be ignoring such a big pie. So for all the operators who want to go into the casino market or other things like bingos and all, they have to have a sports betting offering to sort of be in the market and remain relevant. And again, what we have seen in Europe as well is that in order to acquire players, sports is an easier path to take. So yes, it is sort of going to stay, and operators will want to offer everything under one umbrella. So at Aspire, I think, as we saw with the acquisition of B2Bet, that is a very strategically important bet that we have taken, because what we want to offer is a one-stop shop where we want to have everything under one umbrella. So for an operator, once they come to Aspire, they don't have to go anywhere else. We have the PAM offering, we have the iGames, we have our own content, we have the B2Bet, we have the managed services. So we just take care of everything under one umbrella. And I think operators will gravitate towards players who can do that, instead of trying to shop around with multiple vendors for different offerings.
Yeah, especially if you're doing everything to respect regulations in every continent, you'll give total peace of mind to everybody. Excellent. One final question. In this very competitive industry, what advice do you give consumers to stay ahead of the curve?
I mean, if you're talking about our customers in particular, I have a very simple advice: just stay with us, and we will make sure you are ahead of the curve. So, no, but in general, I think from what we've talked about as well, regulations are here, and they will just increase. So more and more markets will open up to that. So we have to make sure that we remain on the right side of the law and enter all these markets in the correct way. Because sooner or later, I think regulators will weed out gray operators. I just was reading today that Norway has, for example, tried to go that route and remove players which are not operating under the license. So I think that is what every player will have to make sure. Apart from that, what we have seen in the last 1 year is that things change. There were a lot of players who were not open to the idea of remote workers or sort of still working with like office securities and all, and suddenly everything changed. So it's very important to continuously invest in tech and sort of make sure that we are in line with the changing times. So I'm particularly sort of thankful to pandemic for this one aspect, despite all the suffering, that it has put a lot of focus on technical investment, that yes, companies will have to sort of evolve. And that is what I can suggest to everyone, that just make sure that we keep updating our technical space.
Fantastic. Aditya, Bhushan, I'd like to thank you very much for doing this. It was a real pleasure to have you. And we wish you the best of luck in your adventure with Aspire Global.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on SiGMA TV, and we'll see you next time.